So good morning. Thank you everyone for coming today. I know most of the people who are in attendance, but for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Jeff Bruner with Wills. And I'm joined here today by Sophia Tarlis from the New York Times, and she's going to be showing us a little bit about what the New York Times kind of site license can do for your institution. Really, I'm going to let Sophia take over here whenever you're ready.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate the invite. I really appreciate that the New York Times has worked with Wills for several years, and definitely appreciate working with all the universities in Wisconsin. Today, what I thought I would do is just take you briefly through a description of NewYorkTimes.com, which is our digital newspaper, and just kind of discuss with you how it's being used as a learning resource. I want to discuss, how we're providing it to academic institutions, what we are doing to work to that end. We've had newspapers in education, I think, since like the 1930s. And, print is really sort of gone by the wayside. It's not very cost effective. And of course, now with the pandemic, it's been very difficult for students to get their hands on print copies. So today, what I just thought I would talk a little bit about is what we're seeing in higher education, how our Gen Z readers are absorbing content, what they prefer, some of the shifts. I'm going to take you through the NewYorkTimes.com digital program and just talk a little bit about the site license. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully I will do it right. And we can get started. And if you do have questions, please put those questions inside the box and we'll definitely try to get to them. Okay. No, I do not want to stop cloud recording. And briefly, let me just pull things up. All right. So if that looks good to you, that looks good to me.
Yep, looks great.
Perfect. Thank you. So what happens when the world turns upside down? What do? We look for information. We go online, we use our mobile devices, we check social media, we scour the web for any information that will help allay our fears. I just read a study that said fear leaves us vulnerable to misinformation. And some recent statistics show that Gen Z readers, they're 18 to 24 years old, develop most of their media literacy skills in college. So we know that it's more important than ever for students to have a reliable digital source for information to help create that solid footing through the unknown. That's one reason. Another reason is when we provide the New York Times in a digital format, we provide it in exactly the way that Gen Z readers interact. So we also found an interesting trend in our research too with our readers in general. They all possess, or most of them possess, one specific trait. It came up in the audience research. That trait was curiosity. So I want to spend a little bit of time on next gen readers. So we did a study on next gen readers, which we bucket as Gen Z and millennials. And for our purposes today, we're going to focus on Gen Z. That's the 18 to 24-year-olds. And want to talk a little bit about why they chose to read the Times. They tell us that they have a desire to be an educated global citizen, to lead an inspiring personal life, to create conversations, and to drive their ambition. So our global coverage provides an accurate view of the world we live in today, and students are more globally aware because of their digital modalities. So it's important to kind of, again, meet them where they're at. We found this interesting. They want to lead an inspired personal life. And we have provided resources to extend the universe for students for people in general and bring it to where they live in their little world. And this translates very well into the classroom, because that's exactly what you want in the classroom. You want to bring your students together with information and then connect that information to the world at large. We also hear that our content inspires them to live their life to the fullest. We know now that there's a professional student life and that we all have personal lives. Those two things got really mixed in the past year, and I think that we're going to have a lot of lessons learned from that. Another thing is that we want to create, they like to create conversation. They say reading our content makes them feel smarter, which I think is interesting because, you know, you take a college student, they're probably, you know, curious as it is. They probably have want a lot of inquiry as it is. So I think it's a good compliment to us that the content makes them feel smarter. This last one, driving their ambition, is interesting because we know that they tell us if they read the Times, they can find things to help them perform better in the workplace and also in places like for job interviews, and also, you know, just in the classroom. The readers see the Times as a tool to assist with success. This is like a few statistics. So we know that Gen Zs fare better than the national average Gen Z New York Times readers in some important areas. So 67% of New York Times Gen Z readers are employed versus the national average of 62. And 50% of New York Times Gen Z readers have a bachelor's degree versus the national average of 46%. So this is just you know, an interesting statistic. I think it's really good to do audience research and then share that with universities because this is your audience as well. So in the last year, the landscape has really changed for students and higher education in general. I've been involved in education since, you know, my 20s. I majored in it, and I have never seen anything impact this industry more. So we've just tried to be nimble and adapt. You know, we're going through a global health crisis. We have a rapidly changing system of rules and procedures, an uncertain economy. We're learning new terms like spike protein and mRNA, and you know, we've had a bit of unhealthy discourse. So all of what's going on right now is also inside this supercharged virtual world, and it's something that we have to be mindful of in how we're getting our daily information. What is reaching out to the internet doing to us? You know, how is it molding our students? So there's a lot of static out there. And in this world where digital information is running amok, they need access to a resource that will provide the most accurate information possible, and most importantly, delivered in the way they behave with digital content. They're used to updating. They're used to adapting to change online. This is not new to them. They've been doing it since they were kids. So accurate digital information today is dependent upon where it originated, the context with which it's created, and very importantly, I don't want to say most importantly, but very importantly, how it's delivered. Over the past decade, the New York Times has advanced the world's most significant journalism to live multimedia storytelling. This advancement allows us to expand a text story and combine the world's most talented journalists with the innovation of data infographics, audio, and visual multimedia. We have more than 40,000 multimedia pieces. Our body of work is truly stunning. And again, this is what we hear from Gen Z. They want multimedia. They gravitate to multimedia. I once thought I would never be able to just watch a YouTube video, you know, instructional on how to do something. And that's actually changed and evolved for me. I'm much more apt to watch a video now than I used to be. I like to read directions, you know. I'm going to also take you through the New York Times and highlight what we are doing with graphs and interactives. I know everybody's kind of jumped onto this data infographic bandwagon over the past year to show and deliver COVID data, but that's not always delivered well. It takes a lot of research and a lot of planning to put together large bodies of data in a way that people can read and also interact on mobile phones, on computers. We've been doing it for quite a while. Another important thing to note about our content is that it's integrated. So the digital solution in its entirety meets us in the way we interact with information as a learning resource in all content areas, but it's integrated. We don't piecemeal stories together to create the daily. We build, investigate, and create dynamic media to craft an accurate history and portrayal of the world for that day. So, for example, we had a meeting with a business reporter, and when Uber first came about, they thought that it would fall under the technology bucket. But it turned out to be a company that was really generating more interest in stories around labor. And if you don't have that nimbleness and be able to go from different sections, then you're going to miss a lot. And that's one thing that we do really well. And just to note, the Times has 15 domestic, 31 international bureaus, 1,700 reporters that speak 55 languages. So we really do bring the world to the reader. When you use NewYorkTimes.com, when you become a subscriber, you don't just get that day's news. Sometimes we're called the first draft of history. And when you look at our body of work, I think you would agree. So with an academic site license and with an individual subscription, you get access to every single story we've ever written back to 1851. And that's, before the Civil War. So Times Machine is an area that really brings that to life. You guys are not strangers to microfilm, digital microfilm. Well, this is available just right on your device. So an academic site license allows universities to give students and faculty this large body of work. And what differentiates it, of course, is the delivery method, because that is what we're noticing that people really want. They want to see the New York Times on their phones in their entirety. They want to interact with the multimedia and the digital. So we provide campus-wide access. We also give a tool called New York Times in Education. And this gives faculty access to instructional strategies in 16 different disciplines, curated from Times content and produced by faculty across the country. And those are mapped to learning outcomes. And this helps with if you're imparting a new course, if you have a new faculty member, or you're just looking for ideas to spark in your classroom. The supplemental learning resource can be customized to support content areas, and this is why it's important. So you can customize your own subscription. If you are an education major, you can look at education articles. You can save. It's cross, it goes cross, like from your phone, it saves to your computer. So it's just a very good piece of information to have. Now, this doesn't include the cooking and crossword app. But you can do a mini crossword, and that's funny because that's how my daughter has her job today. She was doing the New York Times crossword and stumbled upon a news article about Boko Haram and was so inspired by it that she is now working at a justice center in communications to help women around the world seek asylum. So we just don't know about the serendipitous knowledge that happens by giving this tool. We have an authentication process that is mobile optimized and takes less than a minute. You can, as a university, sign up to provide access through your email domain or through your IP and proxy server. What this means is, and I just have to say I prefer domain, but it's of course up to the university. What this means is students would be recognized by, say, their university domain. They would go through a workflow. They would put their email address in to create a New York Times account, and that would be, and then they would have it. That would be the only thing that they would need to do. Students would not have to re-authenticate this every year. They put their graduation date in, and they'll have their Times account until they graduate. Faculty, however, would have to re-authenticate every year because they're more transient. I see there's a question here. Yes, that's right. About the cost, and we'll get into that in the end because I do want to. I have some ideas. We also provide a launch guidebook, which is great. We put together graphics for you, digital posts, tweets, printable assets, everything. So I'm just going to take us quickly through the New York Times Live because it's really much more fun than an Excel or than a PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen, a new share, and I'm going to put it on a different page, and hopefully I can find the right page. So bear with me for 1 minute. Let's see. All right. Okay. Can everybody see this? It's the front page of the New York Times today.
Yep, looks
Great.
good.
Thanks, Jeff. All right. So this is how we typically behave with media. If we go to a website, if we go to newyorktimes.com, we scroll the front page, and that's great. And we put a lot on our front page. But I'm going to take you a little deeper. First, this is where you would have your account. This is my number, but I do have a name, and everybody else will too when they have their own subscription. It's here where you can view your saved articles, where you can just know that if you save an article, that's where it will go. So I like to take a little bit deeper of a dive. But the first place I want to take you is Times Machine. It's my favorite. It's dessert first. This is the homepage of Times Machine. On the homepage of Times Machine, we always publish what happened on this day in a given year. This is how we interact with it. It's digital microfilm. It is just my favorite place to go and talk about putting context around the world and world events. This is just exactly that. Not only that, it shows styles. I've had art departments use the ads to fashion costumes for plays that they're doing for period pieces. So you can scroll like this, you can zoom and use these tools on the side. And then if you want to go into an article, you would click it open, scroll to the side, and it opens as a PDF. So that's one way to do it. These can be downloaded, printed, saved, email. We limit to 5 a day. So everybody just doesn't go on and steal all of our content. It's good content. One thing that's important to note about the New York Times is that we're family owned, and we've been family owned since the 1800s by the same family. So we own all of our material, which means when we made the transition from print to digital, we did it consistently and we did it the same way. So it's just this great body of work, and it's all in one place. Also, if you look up here at the center of the front page, you can see that we provide the international, a new Canadian edition, Spanish, Chinese. And I'm very enthralled with this because this is produced in our bureau. I believe it's based in Singapore. And these are different stories. This is our original content. You won't see all of what's on the front page of New York Times here. So if I were to click into an article, and let me see if this has been up long enough. This looks like it was just posted. I'm going to go to another one to show you an example. Let's try this one. Okay, if I click into this article, I can't read this, but you can look here at these 3 tabs, and this middle tab will translate side by side. So it expands its use, and it's also good for language, especially the Spanish version. It's just good for teaching language. By the way, if you do fall down a rabbit hole, which I do quite often with the New York Times, you can just click on the masthead and you'll be taken back to the home page. Safe and sound. So when I talked earlier about data infographics, I mentioned that we have been doing this for a while, and we've been doing it for about 5 years. We created a section called the Upshot, which was focused specifically on putting data in a way that people can understand. And I remember reading a news article about data journalism in 2008 that actually was a TED Talk that talked about how data-based journalism was just this up-and-coming thing, and how you can make different decisions and you can see different patterns when you put all this data into a graphically beautiful sort of visual. And so our coronavirus data started with one case in Chicago. It was recorded on an Excel document by a freelancer who was a graduate of Northwestern, and obviously it grew from there. So we really went to work trying to collect that data in a way that would be accurate enough and make sense to the world. And actually Google is using our data. We've had the CDC and Johns Hopkins consult with us on our data. So it's really, it's very good, it's very accurate, and it's very easy to use. This is going to be around for a while, but one of the things that I didn't understand is about coronavirus are the variants. And I show this article because it just provides a really good visual of what a variant is. Another thing that we have done is we've expanded our ability to do things live. So if there is a hearing, if there is a press conference, we'll run it on our front page, and there's no anchor kind of blocking their opinions in the background. You can just watch it, and that's a really good thing. So we're also updating these pages live too as we get data, which for the coronavirus, it's once a day. Here's just another article that shows the vaccine rollout. And it's important, again, to look at this and say, wow, I can tell you what is going on in the United States in terms of how the population is being vaccinated just by looking. It's incredible. You know how much data this is? And then if you hover, you can just look, share the population. Wisconsin is at least one dose, 27%. That's better than Illinois, which is where I'm in. Well, maybe it's not, but it sure feels like it's a lot better. Lake County and Cook County don't seem to be doing that great. And then Johnson & Johnson is coming. And then you can also interact with this data in different ways. And there are areas where you can punch in your own county. You can sort. So it's just really different, and it's easy, and you don't need 2 fingers to zoom, which I really like. We've organized we're trying something different with our news. So if you look up at the top, this is the kind of like the umbrella for the coronavirus. And if you look to the right, it'll have different subtopics. And this is kind of where we bucket all of our news. So you can, on coronavirus, so you can come here and then drill down. So this is a perfect time to show you that this is how you interact with the media. You can copy links to syllabus. You can share, email, and comment. And I think the comments are very valuable in terms of education. I've had professors in biology, do a unit on creationism versus evolution, and instead of putting their own opinions in the classroom, they've looked for articles here, had students read the comments, and find trends for both sides. And I think that's a great way to use this. We moderate, and we also pick comments that we find to be the most valuable. This is another challenge in the classroom. You could have students comment on an article, and if it gets picked by the New York Times as one of the great comments, then they could get extra points. It's just a way to kind of teach them that it's better to try to craft a comment than it is just to throw a tweet. In terms of our multimedia, this is just one of hundreds of examples of how the stories are not only informative, but just beautiful. And this one is about the Northern Lights and an Indigenous population in the Northwest Territory in Canada. And, it talks about how this was a tourist town, but they don't have a lot of medical assistance. They don't have a lot of they don't have a lot of rock star hospitals. So when COVID hit, it talks about what they did to protect the Indigenous people. They had been struck by pandemics in the past, influenza, tuberculosis, and so they put together a very good plan, and it turns out that there's no cases there. So it's a wonderful story. But what I wanted to show you most is the background and how engaging the background is and why it contributes to the learning. Like when I think about this Indigenous population, I think about the steam rising in the sky, and I think about the snow dogs. They built a road on a lake. So that's why this is important to learning. Again, back to infographics. How does your state make electricity? This is an interesting infographic as well. I'm going to scroll quickly. Sorry, I don't want to make anybody dizzy, but there's a map at the bottom. Again, that's going to give you the visual needed to be able to, where is this map? To be able to, again, get this information right away. And I'm going to try to go fast. I don't want to make anybody dizzy. All right, well, I will email you the map just in the interest of time, because it, again, I couldn't believe it. And one of the reasons why I couldn't believe it is because Illinois gets their power from nuclear energy. And it's one of only 3, states that do that. And I just saw this as a visual and knew it and, moved on, but still it struck a chord. So for education classes, for education majors, for anybody interested in teaching, we have the Learning Network. This is a body of work that takes all of our content and puts it into lesson plans for, K-12. But this is great if you're majoring in education and you're doing your methods classes. It's also good for, some college level courses as well. We offer a webinar series on writing for teachers and homeschoolers, and just so much information, quizzes and writing prompts. We have a writing unit in middle school. Well, if I'm an education major and I want to be a middle school teacher, this is very valuable to me. And I think this is good to take into consideration as well. The lessons of the day, we have quizzes. We talk about how to make graphs and how to impart that into reports. So when the pandemic hit and everybody had to stay home, we stopped printing the travel section and the sports section on Sunday. And we started something called At Home, which has brought the personal side of this pandemic together with the other news content that the New York Times provides, and is helping the whole person. And what we found out about students is that they needed support that, you know, was kind of hard to identify and hard to give. We all did. So this is it. At Home talks about things like, what are you going to cook for dinner? At the beginning of the pandemic, it was should you stock your pantry? How to go online, how to get the most out of a Zoom meeting, yoga, exercise, cooking, you know, television. I mean, I've watched everything on Netflix. I love this one, shopping for day beds. You know, I've noticed that I don't even have that in my own space. I don't have enough beds. I don't have enough desks. So for some reason, this section is just picking up on all the things that distract us and things that make us feel better in this time. I recommend this highly for anybody, just to get a sense of what other people are going through. Nostalgia 1 year in, that's an interesting one. What to do this weekend, those are great. My daughter and I were in Chicago, and we were in my apartment in the city, which I've since moved from because it was just like living in a cage. And we used to take driving safaris, and we got the idea from here. So I would map out something that we wanted to see, like, oh, movie locations or famous cemeteries, you know, and we would take driving safaris. But those are the ideas that help keep us safe. And then back to the depth of content. You can go from what to watch on Netflix to the closing scenes of Abraham Lincoln's death as told firsthand by a reporter who wrote this article by his pulse. So this humanizes Abraham Lincoln's death. Whereas if we want to make a connection, humanizing something like September 11th, you know, where were you when? My kids still ask me, what did we do? We were scared. They wouldn't let us watch TV. Those are things that they remember. I used to ask my mom about where she was when Kennedy was assassinated, and she was teaching second grade, and the principal came on the loudspeaker and made the announcement. Those are the elements of history that don't get translated into a history book. So when you have an account like this to work from, because nobody's alive that, you know, witnessed or was present for Abraham Lincoln's assassination, it really helps, again, to connect the human with the event. And this is a good example of it. I show this all the time. It's one of my favorite because I also appreciate the use of language. Our citizens, without any pre-concert whatever, are draping their premises with festoons of mourning. Actually, I think we should bring festoons back. I think that would be a good word. And finally, yes, you're done. We got through it. Finally, I want to show you what New York Times in Education is. This is our body of learning resources. Can go to psychology. It's all the same. It's all done in the same structure. And we're always working to make this better. So if you have ideas or you want to be a contributor, or, you know, there are things, please let us know. So this is the faculty member who is responsible for the psychology page. I think it's great that her email is there, again, just for connecting. Questions, collaboration. And here is, this will run a school calendar. So it stops, you know, April, May, and starts again, August, September. How children read differently from books versus screen. So you would click into here. It can be bookmarked. Here's the link to the story. And here's the strategy. And some of them are more complex than others. They run the gamut, you know, 100, 200, 300 level, 400. Talks down. And then if you scroll to the bottom, it'll show you what learning outcomes are connected. And then if you click on these, You can sort by learning outcome. Oh, that looks like a scary one. So this is how it works. It's a wonderful aside, and it comes only for site license subscribers. And then for sign up, this is what the sign up page would look like. You would just put in your school, say. So you would just put in your school and then click. It would take you to the university. It's running a little slow. The University of Stout looks like they're doing IP proxy. So if you're on campus, you would click here. If not, you would click the go button. It would ask for your credentials. I don't have any, therefore I'm not going to get in. So, and then it would just take you through the workflow where you would sign up for your subscription and you would only do this one time. But it's been great for, you know, students are not in person. In-person classes are still sort of a hybrid everywhere. And it also is harder to get print in libraries. It's just it's a whole thing now, which I'm sure you know. And that's it. So if you have any questions, I would love to be able to take them now. I'm happy to provide pricing and, you know, outside of this meeting. So feel free to let me know. And let's see. So we were talking about the pricing, 153 FTE. Yes, we do have a minimum of $2,000. So it's for schools that are smaller, like yours, Jennifer. This is relatively new, so I was thinking maybe we could try to do something where we have a joint site license with other schools that are also small in nature, and maybe we could do something like that to just help alleviate the costs. But it's setting up two separate accounts, which is where the labor is, and that's where it's mostly about the back end. So it would be something that I would have to, really kind of shell out. And yes, all of this works with the New York Times app. You can do everything on the app. The browser you can use in Safari, like I use Times Machine from Safari, and then I just bookmarked it on my phone, so I can go straight. But yeah, it's very mobile friendly.
Sophia, if there's anything that Wills can do to help facilitate that idea of possibly helping some smaller institutions band together for a single subscription. I mean, I know most of the work is on the back end at New York Times, so I understand that that's kind of the infrastructure there is probably what's behind the minimum subscription
Yes.
Cost. But as you think about that or explore that internally, keep us in mind. Maybe there's something that Wills on the consortium level can do to help at least maybe alleviate that a little bit or make it a little bit more worth while to try and explore that. We'd be open to any way that we can help.
I think that is something that I'll pitch. It wouldn't be overnight. What we would probably want to do first is to kind of get a coalition of schools. And I think there are a few in Wisconsin actually that have expressed interest, but it's just too much money for just a small body of people. If not, maybe we can see about doing something on the back end with a group subscription, which is usually more expensive. So we can maybe see something about how to take a group subscription. We'd have to be able to justify the back end. But I am definitely committed to providing this at universities and definitely committed to being creative. So if we could put something out about smaller universities, and I can help you maybe craft that, we can maybe craft that together, Jeff. We can see if there's any interest. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I think it's worthwhile for maybe you and I to have a subsequent conversation
Sure.
After this meeting, just to talk about even brainstorm what that might look like, and maybe there's a path forward to make this, I mean, tremendous resource, and everyone agrees it's a tremendous resource. Okay, I'm stop using tremendous. That's a word that I have bad associations with, but it's a great resource that I think is incredibly valuable. And we want to make sure it's accessible to as many institutions as possible, which I know you want too. So I think some future meeting where we can maybe come up with at least the outline of a plan of how we might approach something like that to do that. I think that's worth exploring a little bit.
Okay, let's do that. We'll talk about it afterwards. That would be fine. We've done that before in the past, so maybe we can do something else. So, yep.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, my contact information, Jeff has it. You probably have it now because of my email and the invite. So if you have any questions or you want to quote, please let me know, and I'll be happy to. Also, since this is such a small group, if you do not currently have a digital subscription to the New York Times, I am happy to give a trial. Usually 30 days. Sometimes I fudge on that and make it longer for anybody who wants one to have full access, and you guys can experience it for yourself. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Sophia. And it looks like, yeah, I mean, I think you've impressed. We definitely have some folks that are interested in exploring. Jenny mentioned possibly, showing that side by side to her ESL faculty, which I think I was really impressed with that too. And that seems like there's a whole world of possibilities with that. So
yes, definitely.
We, as I said, we're recording this session, so I'll also be sharing today's session with all of our academic members, even folks who weren't able to be here today. We'll kind of see what we can come up with together about helping some smaller institutions that might not be able to jump in at the current level, but anybody who's interested and wants to know more about the resource or more about pricing, feel free to reach out to me at Wills or Sophia, and we'll get the ball rolling for you.
Great, perfect. Thank you. Thank you all for attending, and thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks again to Sophia for joining us today, and we'll talk to you all again soon.
Bye.
Bye.